The Tulunids were a dynasty of Turkic origin and were the first independent dynasty to rule Islamic Egypt, as well as much of Syria. They remained independent from 868, when they broke away from the central authority of the Abbasid dynasty that ruled the Islamic Caliphate, until 905, when the Abbasids restored the Tal Unit domains to their control. In the late 9th century, internal conflict amongst the Abbasids meant that control of the outlying areas of the empire was increasingly tenuous, and in 868 the Turkic officer Ahmed ibn Toulon established himself as an independent governor of Egypt. He subsequently achieved nominal autonomy from the central Abbasid government. During his reign and those of his successors, the Tal Unit domains were expanded to include Jordan Rift Valley, as well as Hejaz, Cyprus and Crete. The Abbasids affirmed their recognition of the Tulunids as legitimate rulers, and the dynasty's status as vassals to the caliphate. After Qamarawi's death, his successor emirs were ineffectual rulers, allowing their Turkic and black slave soldiers to run the affairs of the state. In 905, the Tulunids were unable to resist an invasion by the Abbasid troops, who restored direct caliphal rule in Syria and Egypt. The Tal Unit period was marked by economic and administrative reforms alongside cultural ones. Ahmed ibn Toulon changed the taxation system and aligned himself with the merchant community. He also established the Tal Unit army. The capital was moved from Fustat to Al-Qatari, where the celebrated Mosque of Ibn Toulon was constructed. History. The rise and fall of the Tulunids occurred against a backdrop of increasing regionalism in the Muslim world. The Abbasid Caliphate was struggling with political disturbances and losing its aura of universal legitimacy. There had previously been Coptic and Alawite-led movements in Egypt, without more than temporary and local success. There was also a struggle for power between the Turkish military command and the administration of Baghdad. Furthermore, there was a widening imperial financial crisis. All of these themes would recur during the Tulunid rule. The internal politics of the Abbasid Caliphate itself seemed to have been unstable. In 870, Abu Ahmed Al Mubarak was summoned from exile in Mecca to re-establish Abbasid authority over southern Iraq. Quickly, however, he became the de facto ruler of the caliphate. As a result of this uncertainty, Ahmed ibn Toulon could establish and expand his authority. Thus the Tulunids wielded regional power, largely unhindered by imperial will. As such, the Tulunids can be compared with other 9th-century dynasties of the Muslim world, including the Ughabids and the Tahirids. Ahmed ibn Toulon was a member of the mostly Central Asian Turkish Guard formed initially in Baghdad, then later settled in Samarra. Upon its establishment as the seat of the caliphate by al-Mutazim, in 254–868, Ibn Toulon was sent to Egypt as resident governor by Bayakbak, the representative of the Abbasid Caliph al-Mutaz. Ibn Toulon promptly established a financial and military presence in the province of Egypt by establishing an independent Egyptian army and taking over the management of the Egyptian and Syrian treasuries. In 877, troops of the caliphate were sent against him, due to his insufficient payment of tribute. Ahmed ibn Toulon, however, maintained his power, and took Syria the following year. His reign of more than 10 years allowed him to leave behind a well-trained military, a stable economy and an experienced bureaucracy to oversee the state affairs. He appointed his son, Qamarawi, as the heir. With full autonomy, once the tax income no longer had to go to the caliph in Baghdad, it was possible to develop irrigation works and build a navy, which greatly stimulated the local economy and trade. In 878, Jordan Valley was occupied by the Tulunids, extending in the north to the outposts in the Anti-Lebanon mountains on the Byzantine border, enabling them to defend Egypt against Abbasid attack. Qamarawi. Following his father's death, Qamarawi took control as the designated heir. The first challenge he faced was the invasion of Syria by armies sent by Al Mubarak, the de facto ruler during the reign of Caliph Al Mu'tamid. Kumarawayh also had to deal with the defection of Ahmed ibn Muhammad al-Wasiti to the invaders' camp, a long-time and key ally of his father's. The young Tal Unit achieved political and military gains, enabling him to extend his authority from Egypt into northern Iraq, and as far north as Tarsus by 890. Being now a prominent player in the Near Eastern political stage, he negotiated 2 treaties with the Abbasids. In the first treaty in 886, al-Mubarak recognized Tal Unit authority over Egypt and the regions of Syria for a 30-year period. The second treaty, reached with al-Mu'tadid in 892, confirmed the terms of the earlier accord. Both treaties also sought to confirm the status of the Tal Unit governor as a vassal of the caliphal family seated in Baghdad. Despite his gains, Kumarawayh's reign also set the stage for the demise of the dynasty. Financial exhaustion, political infighting and strides by the Abbasids would all contribute to the ruin of the Tulunids. Kumarawayh was also totally reliant on his Turkish and sub-Saharan soldiers. Under the administration of Kumarawayh, the Syro-Egyptian state's finances and military were destabilized. The later emirs of the dynasty were all ineffectual rulers, relying on their Turkish and black soldiers to run the affairs of the state. Kumarawayh's son Abu al-Asakir was deposed by the Tal Unit military command in 896 AD. Shortly after coming to power, he was succeeded by his brother, Harun. Though he would rule for 8 years, he was unable to revitalize the dynasty, and was assassinated in 904. After the Abbasid army had recovered Syria and was on the verge of invading Egypt itself, Harun's successor, his uncle Shayban ibn Ahmad ibn Toulon, was unable to resist an Abbasid invasion under the command of Muhammad ibn Sulayman al-Khatib. With naval support from frontier forces under Damian of Tarsus, this brought an end to his reign and that of the Tulunids. Culture. Ahmad ibn Toulon founded his own capital, al-Qatari, north of the previous capital Fustat, where he seated his government. One of the dominant features of this city, and indeed the feature that survives today, was the Mosque of Ibn Toulon. The mosque is built in a Samarran style that was common in the period during which the caliphate had shifted capitals from Baghdad to Samarra. This style of architecture was not just confined to religious buildings, but secular ones also. Surviving houses of the Tal Unit period have Samarran-style stucco panels. Kumarawayh's reign exceeded his father's in spending. He built luxuriant palaces and gardens for himself and those he favored. To the Tal Unit Egyptians, his marvelous blue-eyed palace lion exemplified his prodigality. His stables were so extensive that, according to popular lore, Kumarawayh never rode a horse more than once. Though he squandered the dynastic wealth, he also encouraged a rich cultural life with patronage of scholarship and poetry. His protege and the teacher of his sons was the famed grammarian Muhammad b. Abdallah b. Muhammad Muslim. An encomium was written by Azim b. Yahya al-Maryami to celebrate Kumarawayh's triumphs on the battlefield. Through the mediation of his closest advisor, al-Husayn ibn al-Jaysas al-Ja'fari, Kumarawayh arranged for one of the great political marriages of medieval Islamic history. He proposed his daughter's marriage to a member of the caliphal family in Baghdad. The marriage between the Tal Unit princess Atr al-Nada with the Abbasid Caliph al-Mu'tadid took place in 892. The exorbitant marriage included an awesome dowry estimated at between 400,000 and 1 million dinars. Some speculate that the splendors of the wedding were a calculated attempt by the Abbasids to ruin the Tulunids. The tale of the splendid nuptials of Atr al-Nada lived on in the memory of the Egyptian people well into the Ottoman period. and were recorded in the chronicles and the folk literature. The marriage's importance arises from its exceptional nature. The phenomenon of marriage between royal families is rare in Islamic history. The concept of dowry given by the bride's family has also been absent in Islamic marriages, where mahr, or bride price, has been the custom. Military. During his reign, Ibn Tulun created a Tal Unit army and navy. The need for the establishment of an autonomous armed force became apparent after the revolt of Sabi al-Shaykhh, governor of Palestine, in 870. In response, Ibn Tulun organized an army composed of Sudanese and Greek slave soldiers. Other reports indicate the soldiers may have been Persians and Sudanese. Ahmed continued his father's policy of having a multi-ethnic army. His military prowess, in fact, was strengthened by his multi-ethnic regiments of black Sudanese soldiers, Greek mercenaries and fresh Turkic troops from Turkestan. Ibn Tulun founded an elite guard to surround the Tal Unit family. These formed the core of the Tal Unit army, around which other larger regiments were built. These troops are said to have been from the region of Gh in Afghanistan, during Ibn Tulun's reign, and from local Arabs during the reign of Ahmed. In a ceremony held in 871, Ibn Tulun had his forces swear personal allegiance to him. Nevertheless, there were defections from the Tal Unit army, most notably of the high-ranking commander Lulu in 883 to the Abbasids. Throughout its life the army faced such persistent problems of securing allegiance. Ahmed also established an elite corps called al-Muqtara. The corps was composed of unruly Bedouins of the eastern Nile Delta. By bestowing privileges upon the tribesmen, and converting them into an efficient and loyal bodyguard, he brought peace to the region between Egypt and Syria. He also reasserted his control over this strategic region. The regiment also included 1,000 Sudanese natives. A list of military engagements in which the Tal Unit army constituted a significant party is as follows. In 877, the Tal Unit troops, after displaying their strength, forced the Abbasid army under Musa b. Bugh to abandon his plan to depose Ahmed ibn Tulun. In 878, the Tulunids, under the pretext of a jihad to defend the frontier districts against the Byzantines, occupied Syria. This campaign was ended prematurely, as Ibn Tulun had to return to Egypt. In 885, the Tal Unit army led by Qumar met the invading Abbasids at the Battle of the Mills in southern Palestine. The Abbasids, led by Ahmed Al Mubarak, had invaded Syria, and the governor of Damascus had defected to the enemy. After both Ahmed and Qumar fled the battlefield, the Ulunid general Sadi al-Izar secured victory. From 885 to 886, the Tal Unit forces, led by Qumar defeated Ibn Kundaj, though the latter had superior numbers. A domino effect followed, as the Jazara, Cilicia and regions as far east as Haran submitted to the Tal Unit army. Peace treaties with the Tulunids put an end to the military campaigns. From 896 to 905, after the Emirates' demise, the Tulunids were unable to stop the Abbasids from taking their capital al-Qatari. Economy. During the reign of Ahmed ibn Tulun, the Egyptian economy remained prosperous. There were propitious levels of agricultural production, stimulated by consistent high flooding of the Nile. Other industries, particularly textiles, also thrived. In his administration, Ibn Tulun asserted his autonomy, refusing to pay taxes to the central Abbasid government in Baghdad. He also reformed the administration, aligning himself with the merchant community, and changing the taxation system. Under the Tulunids, there were also repairs in the agricultural infrastructure. The key sector of production, investment, and participation in their Mediterranean-wide commerce was textiles, linen in particular. The financial bureaucracy throughout the Tal Unit period was headed by members of the al-Madari family. financial autonomy. During the period of 870 to 872, Ibn Tulun asserted more control over Egypt's financial administration. In 871, he took control of the Kharaj taxes as well as the Thufa from Syria. He also achieved victory over Ibn Al Mubarak, the head of the finance office and member of the Abbasid bureaucratic elite. The de facto ruler of the Abbasid Caliphate, Al Mubarak, took issue with Ibn Tulun's financial activities. He wanted to secure Egyptian revenue for his campaign against the Zand rebellion. This pressing need for funds drew the attention of Baghdad to the considerably more wealthy Egypt. The situation came to a head in 877, when Al Mubarak, upon not receiving the demanded funds, sent an army to depose Ahmed ibn Tulun. Nevertheless, on at least 2 occasions, Ibn Tulun remitted considerable sums of revenue, along with gifts, to the central Abbasid administration. Under Ahmed's son, Kumarawayh, the Abbasids formally entered into a treaty with the Tulunids, thereby ending hostilities and resuming the payment of tribute. Financial provisions were made in the first treaty in 886 with Al Mubarak. A second treaty with Al Mu'tadid, the son of Al Mubarak, in 892, reaffirmed the political terms of the first. Financially, the Tulunids were to pay 300,000 dinars annually. Tal Unit Administration. The Tal Unit Administration over Egypt bore several notable features. The style of rule was highly centralized and pitiless in its execution. The administration was also backed by Egypt's commercial, religious and social elite. Ahmed ibn Tulun replaced Iraqi officials with an Egyptian bureaucracy. Overall, the administration relied on the powerful merchant community for both financial and diplomatic support. For example, Ma'mar al-Ja'afari, a leading member of the merchant community in Egypt, served as Ibn Tulun's financier. The Tal Unit Administration also helped the economy prosper, by maintaining political stability, which in Egypt is a sine qua non. Isolated revolts among the Copts and some Arab nomads in Upper Egypt, which never threatened the dynasty's power, were actually a response to more efficient Tal Unit fiscal practices. The economy was strengthened by reforms introduced both immediately before the Tulunids and during their reign. There were changes in the taxes assessment and collection system. There was also an expansion in the use of tax contracts, which were the source of an emergent landholding elite in this period. Ahmed ibn Tulun's agrarian and administrative reforms resulted in encouraging peasants to work their lands with zeal, despite the heavy taxes. He also terminated the exactions of the administration officers for their personal profit. One final feature of the administration under Ibn Tulun was the discontinued practice of draining off the majority of his revenue to the metropolis. Instead, he initiated building programs to benefit other parts of Egypt. He also used those funds to stimulate commerce and industry. Large expenditures. Mubarak inherited a stable economy and a wealthy polity from his father. The treasury was worth 10 million dinars at the young Tulunid succession. When Mubarak was killed in 896, the treasury was empty, and the dinar had sunk to 1/3 its value. Part of this financial disaster is attributed to his addiction to luxury, while squandering wealth to win loyalty was also another cause. Mubarak, unlike his father, spent lavishly. For example, he gave his daughter, Atr al-Nada, an extraordinary dowry of 400,000 1 million dinars, for her wedding in 892 to the Abbasid al-Mu'tadid. This move is speculated by some scholars to have been an attempt by the Abbasid to drain the Tal Unit treasury.